Firstly, just to introduce myself, my name is Logan Pillay, and I'm heading up the Engineering Center of Excellence as part of the Eskom Academy of Learning, within the Eskom Academy of Learning in Eskom. And I'm looking after the development of mainly engineers, technicians, technologists in the areas of mentorship, coaching, normal course development. So basically that is my background. And I'm also going to ask maybe each of the panel members to introduce themselves and the area of expertise in terms of this panel.
Okay, my name is Patrick Forbes. Formal designation is Senior Consultant in HR. I'm primarily accountable for remuneration and provision of service and benefits. I think the reason I'm here is because I've been a chief mentor in the HR environment for many years, been with Eskom for 37 years, both in the line and in HR. And I think it's as the mentorship role, obviously, that I'm here today.
Hi, my name is Unconferencing. My sole responsibility at Eskom, I'm an HMI developer. Basically, I'm responsible for the support and the development of the human-machine interface that national control room uses, and I'm here as a protege of Dr. Richard Kelly.
How's it, guys? I'm not quite sure what honor what I've achieved to reach this honor of sitting at the panel here. I don't think I'm any different from any of you guys. And the pleasure of working for Eskom, and I must admit it has been a pleasure over the last 40-odd years. The joy of being able to get new kit, to play with it, to develop it, just to experiment and see how we can grow it to make it work for us. And over the years, I've met many people. I've had a hand in training many people, explaining to a lot of people what we do in the organization. I just enjoy what I do.
Okay, thanks Richard for that. I'm also going to ask Lindiwe to just introduce us. Lindiwe was managing the whole team, trying to get us all together. So Lindiwe, just...
Well, it's just a bit surprised that I'm one of the panel members. I'm actually not the panel member. I'm just someone from the Talent Management Center of Excellence. I'm the acting chief advisor there. I was just coordinating the whole the topic around the value of mentorship and stuff there. And when I spoke to my manager, I said, we must do things differently this year. We must not have a lot of HR people being in the panel because it's like talking to HR to HR. Talent does not belong to HR, it belongs to Line. So Line has come up to tell us their story, how are they going to change. So I've been in Eskom for 15 years to date, and I've enjoyed working as in the HR environment. My specialty must very much be aero specialties, HR.
Now, Lindiwe also answers one of my questions. I'm wondering what am I doing here? I got invited to it. Now I know who's responsible for it. So I'm going to take you up on that later. So I think in general, how we're going to follow this process is really, we're going to look at, I'm going to go through the presentation. We're going to spend around about 20-25 minutes on the presentation itself. It's a very basic presentation. There's a lot of more information in the mentorship and coaching book that we published. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll talk about some of the models that we are using in Eskom. And then we've got some questions that I put together about 5 or 6 questions together with some of the panel members and some inputs from some of the Eskom delegation. And we're going to together answer those questions together with the panel. And so it's going to be quite an interactive session. And hopefully we can get through this in an hour's time. So basically, in terms of the whole presentation, I'm going to talk around a learning model, and this learning model is linked to the first speakers that actually presented in the main session. I'm going to talk a little bit about mentorship and skills transfer in developing and retaining talent, and then I'm going to talk about a model that we've developed in Eskom called the professional development model. And then we're going to go through a sort of a panel discussion, but the discussion together with the delegation as well. So we'll have some of the panel members lead some of that discussion. Yes. Yes, we will make it available as well. And you'll find a lot of the detailed information is in the book itself. Just a little bit up there. Now, the earlier speaker spoke about the classroom-based in university. You only come up with 10% of the learning. Well, that model, it changes. I was looking at a good reference where we can reference this. Dr. Brent Peterson from the Apollo Consulting Group in the USA came up with this model. And this model actually is talking about learning in the classroom is only looking at close to about 24% of your total learning capacity. And I think the speaker earlier spoke about 10%, so it can vary between 10 to 24% depending on which areas you are. The pre-work is actually what accounts for 26% of the learning. So assuming you come into a learning event, or we are talking about some technical issue or a non-technical issue, if you do some pre-reading up front, before you come into the class, before you come into the workshop, 26% of your learning is already there. So it's even bigger than the classroom based. But the biggest portion of the learning is 50, and now the new research is even showing more than 50% of the learning is actually post the event, post the classroom, post the university. And this is where the whole area of mentorship, coaching, and all of that comes in. And I think what's going to be very interesting is the next bit. Now, traditionally, organizations, and this is world statistics, it's not South African statistics. Traditionally, organizations are spending 10% of their investments. So if this was your total budget for learning, you're spending only 10% of your budget on pre-work. You're spending closely about 85% in the world we're spending on the learning event. And then only 5% we're spending on the follow-up, the mentorship, the coaching. And this is the model. So which means, if you look at this slide, we're actually spending all the effort in the wrong place. If we get everything right here, we're only going to get 24% of the learning investment. And I think the speaker this morning even spoke about even 10%. So that's quite interesting, I think. Okay. Please also make it interactive. If there's a question, let's ask the question. If there's a burning question. Otherwise, you can wait for me to finish and then we can ask some of the questions. Now, in terms of the value of mentorship and skills transfer, developing and retaining the talent, I just gave some very broad definitions, and in the book there's detailed definitions around this. But really, a mentor is really a person that guides, assists, encourages another human being. But the new research is showing guides and develops a person in the area of their talent. So you could also have a mentor guiding you, and they could be guiding you in the wrong direction as well. So it's essential that the mentors, and even if you look at coaching, that actually looks at the process of developing the skills, but knowing what the person's natural talent is. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Knowledge or attributes that are relevant to the business success. And then normally a mentor is giving assignments to move the proteges. And the protege is the person that is being mentored, or the mentee, to give that protege or mentee assignments to move them up to the next level. Now, historically, mentorship and skills transfer were not linked to talent management. So, in other words, what actually happened was a mentor took another person along and mentored them, but without looking at what is the inherent talent in that individual. But I think now we are looking more at a holistic approach where the development is in line with their natural abilities. And I think that is really where the new research is going. But the new research is also showing that mentorship and skills transfer in isolation to exploring the proteges or the mentee's natural talent is not effective and will guide the protege down the correct path. So maybe you may have a protege that you're directing and you're guiding, but you don't know what that individual's natural talent is. You may be setting them down the wrong path. And what we've actually recently now started using within the Eskom organization, And this is brand new. We're using things like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. We're using another assessment called the Colby assessment. And also we're using emotional intelligence, EQ, to look at and to link this to mentorship and coaching and skill development. And this assists in making mentorship and the mentorship relationship successful. So we find a lot of the relationships actually fail because we don't have that match between the talent management and these sort of tools, which is quite interesting. Now, it's very interesting. We are actually also working on a new book now. We tried to get Kathy Colby, who developed the Colby assessment, to be part of that project. And what actually happened is, what Kathy Colby says in a lot of her research is that everybody's got a natural ability. You're either a fact finder, a follow through, implementer, what's the third one? Fact finder, follow through, implementer, and quick start. And everybody's got the natural talent, and throughout their life, this doesn't change. So when you're actually looking at appointing people and doing projects in an organization, you need to look at what the strength of the individual is. For example, if that individual is an innovator and not a follow-through person, there's no point in giving them the task to follow financial payments or procurement. It's just never going to work. So you're never going to get performance management right if you don't follow the principles of talent management. And a structured mentorship program will assist companies to attract and retain the best talent, thereby ensuring long-term sustainability of the company. Again, you can see a lot of the work here is tying in with what was discussed this morning. And this is the model that actually we came up in Eskom, and it's part of the Eskom professional development policy. And we really look at when the graduate training comes into Eskom. And remember, the graduate training can be an engineer, a technician, an engineer, a scientist, it could be a chartered accountant. It takes about 2 years for the person to move to what we call a basic level, 2 to 5 years to move to what we call an intermediate level, and an advanced level really looking at 7 to 10 years, where we can get a competent person that's developed. And what we do is we place the candidate in the middle of the development process, and the candidate will have various developments around the candidate. The first is really the induction into the company, and but this induction is showing the candidate the total value chain of the organization. What does this power utility do? Then we look at the whole mentorship. We take them through the mentorship and coaching process of how that gets done. And we've got a structured program that we look at, and we also give the book out to the mentor and coach. We train the mentors and the coaches. We then have a training program, a structured training program within the organization. Now, and I must say, in some parts of the organization, it's very structured, and in other areas, it's not so structured, being a huge organization, but we're trying to put more structure on it. We've got training material that we actually developed, and one of the things that we developed was, for the pre-learning, is we developed, we call these the Eskom Power Series books. There are 10 books in the series. They're published books, and they actually sell all over the world. I just passed this around. So we've captured a lot of the knowledge in those books, and we have some of those books that are available electronically on our knowledge management system called Microwave. So a lot of the training material, we then sort of formalize that. Then we have support services being developed and given by the human resources group, the individual development plans that is linked to that. Now, one of the important things also for the candidate is peer support. We also learn very well from our peers, because our peers are faced with the same challenges that we face. Sometimes we feel bad to go to the professor or the manager or person higher up in the organization, because they may think we're not so intelligent. So we then work a lot with the peers, and the peer. So the peer is part of your development. Now in Eskom, we've got some groups that has been formed, young professional groups, and they meet on a regular basis, and they learn and they encourage one another along the process. There has to be defined outputs for the candidate, and there has to be assessments. And normally we have our assessments after 6 months, and after the 6-month assessment, the person then moves into the next level in terms of promotion. So we have a panel that actually does that assessment. And what we say is this is the holistic development of the individual. So we look at the total life cycle of that individual specifically. I don't know if there are any questions up to that point on the presentation before we move into answering some of these questions. And I think the panel members may have a slight disadvantage. Maybe Patrick, you want to move on to one of those seats. I tried to print out all the slides, but this one slide is not get printed out. But really, is there any questions? Yes.
Hi. I'd like to refer back to your slide on the different levels.
That one there.
How do you actually determine if a person is on the intermediate or advanced stage? Because sometimes you can stay there for 5 years only to find that you're not really ready. So how do you determine that?
Okay. You can ask one of the panel members to assist me with that. Okay, Richard is good.
In essence, what it amounts to is when you bring someone into a particular role, you leave them there to mature a little bit. And deliberately, you'll give them a problem. And what I used to do, so I'd give her a problem and walk out of the office, knowing full well that she had sufficient information to solve it, but not all the tools. She would then be frustrated because she didn't go, but because of the fact that she was in an environment where she could explore and find out what she's getting to, she would then be able to be under self-pressure. She wants to solve the problem. And as a result, she would then, out of frustration, explore all the opportunities she has to build a point where she has sufficient knowledge to actually solve it. I'll then come back in and say, oh yeah, she's found out how to do it. Now, by the same token, as you are guiding someone, you want to put them in a position where they can take over from you. So the basic is where she can't manage without you. And the intermediate is where she can manage without you. Obviously it's going to be the deterministic thing in the field that you're in. You can't say there's a rule for everything. But as you're growing someone, you've got to realize that I'm going to give you a challenge with sufficient tools. If the ability to handle the tools is not there, they're intermediate. If the ability to handle the tools is there, it's obviously, if the ability not to handle the tools but not to get the answer, it's basic. When you can handle the tools, it's intermediate. When I can walk away completely and leave a job to her, it's advanced. But each case is...
But do you have a formal structure where you test a certain competency that you want?
We only have that really at the training and the basic level. So the first 2 years we have structured programs where we do assessment in terms of every 6 months and how far they have gone in terms of that and how competent they are. And when it comes to the intermediate and the advanced levels, it's more in the career pathing and it's more in terms of promotions and it's more in terms of a continuum of growth. It's not really specific stages where you move within your career.
Okay, I think there's another question here. Yes.
Probably a couple of questions. Just talk to us about the criteria that you use for pairing mentors and consultants. You apply some of your assessment tools to mentors as well, and is mentorship built into the performance outcomes of your people in the mentoring role?
Okay, as far as the latter part of the question is concerned, I can answer that we do building in terms of our performance management system, the KPI associated with mentorship and the certain outcomes based on the mentorship role. Otherwise, we find that it's an additional add-on over and above the normal work, and people don't necessarily always accept that so readily. So we try and build it into the performance management system in terms of specific outcomes. With regard to the first part of the question, which is the matching, I think they'll be in a better position to answer in terms of the particular methods of assessment. But clearly, my personal experience, I'm speaking from personal experience, we've got the formal role. We've got the formal appointments of mentors and coaches, and it usually is associated with the area of expertise But what works the very best is where there's organic, natural chemistry between the mentor and the protege. And in those kinds of environments, particularly if you're talking about trying to expose them to, for example, levels in the organization or executive roles, then that in particular works the best. If you're talking about more on-job training, specific outcomes, then it's a question of the individual's area of expertise that works the best. As far as the specific personality tests and the EQ, etc., I'm not sure if you want to say anything further there.
Yes, I think I'll comment on that. Also in Eskom, we don't have, you must understand it's a huge organization. So in some areas, we've experimented in a few areas. The one area where we've experimented is we've asked the mentees or the proteges to actually choose their own mentor. And so we gave them the opportunity, because what we found there is that the relationship is more sustainable because they sort of pair themselves with people that could guide them, and we have less conflict in that role. The second way that we used is we used things like EQ, we've used the Colby, we've used MBTI, we use a lot of these assessment tools, and we looked at a way of pairing these mentors from based on profiles. And we've had some good success in that as well, so that has actually worked. But the best record, if you really want to know a lot of more information, there's a whole write-up in the book on how to actually do it, in terms of the different ways of actually doing it. And we found there isn't just one method of actually doing it, but most recently what we've tried to do is we tried to give the proteges an opportunity to choose the mentor. And once they choose the mentor, we then, we look at the profiles and see, yes, this is a good match or not. If it's not a good match, and in many cases we find actually the match is good, so it can be linked to a profile as well. And then for those that cannot find the mentor, we then have the process where we look at the profiles that we start to match. But one of the important things in the whole mentorship program is you have to have what we call a chief mentor. So you will have your mentors, and a lot of these mentors need some assistance, and we normally appoint what we call a chief mentor for an area, for business area. And the chief mentor will then, what they do is they chair the mentorship committees, and in the committees all the issues come up, and those issues get resolved. So the chief mentor is also a good driver in terms of trying to assist where we've got that gap. In terms of, and normally chief mentor is normally that, the chief mentor is normally that mentor that's went that extra mile, that has actually developed that expertise. And you see it in every area, there's one or two individuals that come out, and it's a natural thing to say, give that. So what we do then is, what we do as part of the Eskom Academy of Learning, is we then train that chief mentor. And then we offer training for the mentors and the coaches. And you see, a lot of our mentors also come from the technical area of being an engineer. And this individual knows very little about mentorship or coaching, so we have to take them through a full program in terms of it. Okay, yes?
I work for Eskom and I started the GIT.
Yes.
So right now where I'm at is at the intermediate phase.
Yes.
So if I want to move to advanced level where I need a mentor, where do I start? Who do I speak to about?
Yes. You see, what we encourage is for somebody to have a mentor from this process all the way to a point somewhere there. And you can even go up to, depending on that relationship. And I know people that have had the mentor and they went up all the way up to even the advanced level. The bad experience we had with some of that is these guys were overseas in the end. I had an experience where we had a person that was mentoring somebody and mentored them to such an advanced level that we had the Electric Power Research Institute in the US that took this individual. So we do it well in some areas, but then we don't have that intention to actually then keep it. But what we advise is to have, sometimes you may have one individual that takes you from that point to about that point, and you may have another individual that takes you to that point. So, I don't know, Richard, do you want to comment on that?
I think that the point that you raised was the technical side of it, and the key understanding here is the need for replacing people as they move on. Typically in the system operator, our staff turnover is virtually zero. People retire rather than leave. Now the challenge you're faced with is that the aging workforce, which you hear a lot about, is reaching a visible stage in the system operator. That the need to find people who are willing to take over the role of, in my case, my role, what do I do, is very difficult. Do you want to raise a point?
Yeah. I want to raise a point. It depends where you are working. So where you're working in that area, you should have a local talent board. And that local talent board will say what your future is and what your areas of development are. And normally the talent board should be able to help you, give you appropriate mentorship or guidance of who you should pay yourself to. So if you're not sure, you can contact your local HR person who should be able to give you guidance on that. So that's what we normally do. You have a talent board, and then there is some form of mentoring that is associated with the people who have got to that stage.
Okay, and I think that's a good point there. Yeah, yes, can we have?
I just want to also introduce Lucy back to Lucy, our senior general manager from Eskom, in generation and sustainability.
Okay, I'd like to just add one other point to that, is that the greatest problem that you're faced with is awareness of what the job entails. If your job is particularly technical, often you're fitted to that job. You're not, you actually walked into it and you've grown it. To find similar people that are going to follow that path is actually quite difficult. And so even though the talent board is there, to find the individuals that want to follow your path, there lies the real challenge. And one of the things that I've made quite a policy on is that you need to find the fire in your tummy. I think that really gets you up in the morning. What is it that you get excited about? And classically, what as individuals you need to be aware of is that, have you actually discovered what gets you fired up in the morning? If you haven't walked that path and actually sat down with a mentor who understands how to find that fire and light that fire, then you're missing the point. You need to understand it's not just a day-to-day job. You've got to find something that really gets you going to get up in the morning and find and do that. So to me, it's not just finding a mentor. The first thing is to find the job that you want to do. That's what you've got to find first. Then you find the area that you want to grow, and then you find somebody to grow it with you.
Just on that issue, Eskom is clearly a multi-generational organization. You've got mentors, probably like yourself, who've been in the organization for 30 years and followed a path that was a pretty acceptable 10 years ago. You've got youngsters coming through the university system who are really looking short-term, etc. We know about the generational challenges. How do you deal with those in a mentoring context? Because most of our organizations look at where the mentor's growth path is not necessarily the project's growth path in the modern arena, where the guys are looking. I've heard someone refer to graduates these days as a slasher generation. Because you ask them what they do, they say, I'm an engineer / hacker / musician / because they do multiple things. And that's a huge challenge in terms of the mentoring dynamic, because the guys are not looking at a 10-year timeline. They're looking at a 2-year timeline or a 3-year timeline.
It comes back to what I initially said. The thing that I get people to do is to take a magazine like this and to go through that magazine. It's for me, the objective is to find the spark, or at least find the fuel that I can light the spark on. So it's a case of you take your magazine and you spend 2 to 3 weeks going through magazines, finding every article in there and writing down what it is I like or what I think I don't like. Once you've established a list of the likes that you want to do, you then come back and we discuss those likes. We then pare them down into 5 or 6 particular topics. And I mean, I talk about every single magazine in the country, from Reuters to Farmers Weekly. It doesn't matter. You need to explore the things that light your fire. Once you've found that part, then as a mentor, I will grow you in that direction. I might not know the right people to grow you in, but I will find them. But to me, it's not just about finding a person to replace my job, it's to find the person.
If I can comment there, I think it's first about, and it doesn't matter which generation you're talking about, it's about what are your goals, what do you want to achieve, and where do you want to achieve. Then once you've got that clear, and obviously, as Richard was saying what are your interests, and to me those should be aligned with your goals. Once you've done that, then you can pair mentors with a similar view or with the ability to take them to where they want to go in a quicker fashion, which is really the role.
Okay, I think we've captured those points. I also wanted us to look at discussing some of these issues, so that I tried to look at the program and try to link this to some of the things that we're dealing with. So if we can just start maybe with the first question, is what are some of the challenges faced with rolling out the mentorship and coaching program? So now we wanted you guys to participate, the panel members together, to say what are some of the challenges. I think some of them came out. We talked about the matching of the mentor and the mentee or the protege. We spoke about some of the dynamics. We spoke about the generation gaps. What are some of the other challenges that you are faced with on a daily basis when you encounter this mentorship and coaching from your organization's point of view? So this is really a very open discussion. Comments, you want to ask more questions around that, feel free, but it's just to point the discussion in a certain area. Or Richard, do you want to start?
I want to make the objective, the thing that I've come across over the years is most people, when they come into the mentorship role, don't know where they want to go. They come in because they need to find a mentor, but they're not actually aware of where their actual talent lies. That to me has been the greatest problem. You try and grow them in a particular area and you realize they're completely disinterested in it. They're there because they've got the bursary and now you want to grow them. That to me has been the greatest challenge, to find out where can we put those people, or where can we grow those talents and get them to recognize what their strengths are. Most of the people coming to me don't actually know how good they are. That's what I experience from the mentees coming in.
Okay, yes, comment here.
I think the big is one of those very mentor commitments. I think one of the biggest challenges of our mentors that they're simply too busy to dedicate their time to you for whatever reasons, and some don't really understand their roles, why they're in that position. So
I started to become his protege. I didn't have an office. I was new in the department and I didn't have an office, and he offered me a space. And then that's how it started, and she's been very helpful in that role. Like he's saying that, sometimes when you underestimate yourself, as I can't do this. But he will always push you. Like 2010, I registered my master's in software engineering. I'm not a programmer by profession. I just knew a bit of programming. But then in 3 weeks, I'll be graduating, and it all helps from him. So he's very, very committed. I think that is one thing that mentors really need to take note of, to be committed. If you have somebody under your wing, you must make sure that it is your responsibility. And also as a protege, also needs to be involved. We shouldn't wait for mentors to come and give you tasks. You must always argue with your mentor. Other than if you don't understand something, that way that relationship will grow healthy. Because if the other party is committed and the other one is not committed, it's going to be a lot of conflict.
If I can just make one or two comments associated with that. Clearly, if you're going to appoint a mentor in a formal role, and it's not on a natural passion and interest to grow people, then there's going to be that issue about time. Time is always a factor everybody knows. So there needs to be the desire from the mentor as a natural desire to want to grow and develop people. If that's not there, no matter how skilled they are in their job, it's not going to bring the desired results. You can't force it.
There's a comment here, and then we'll come to you after that.
Okay, my name is Wayne. Look, as a small business owner, I think a lot of the logistics and things changes. For me, with mentoring my small staff, it's a case of resources, a case of time, it's a case of finance, because you've got to put time, and that's a big thing, is you spend quality time with the people, you're going to see an end result. I know we're not an ROI one, but that's a huge one. There are facilities out there which are becoming more available for SMEs. But I find that another big one is your energy. that you've got to run a business, and you're also then going to put the time into the training. So I guess one of my questions is, apart from Red Bull and time allocation, what are some of the pointers to be able to deal with those things?
Okay, I think that's a good comment. We're not necessarily going to have all the answers, but I think it's a matter of discussing. Somebody had a point in the back there, yes?
I have, but I forgot his name, and I know it's not Richard, the other gentleman.
Patrick.
I have a question for you, Patrick, actually. I'm sort of now confused. What's your understanding between a mentor and a coach? Because what she just told us now, to me, felt like how I experienced some of my coaches, but never my mentor. So I was just concerned. What's your take? What's the difference? Is there a difference between what your coach should be and what your mentor should be?
Yes, to me there clearly is a difference. And the coach is more the on-job conveyor of a skill or a competence. So depending on what you're doing, the coach is the hands-on person who transfers that skill. And that's a particular skill in a particular context. A mentor has a bigger, broader picture in terms of where you want to go, how you want to achieve it, what are your learning paths and patterns, and where do you want to eventually go, how to ease you into the organization, how to ease you into the boardroom. Those are the kinds of roles that the mentor plays. And the chief mentor is really to ensure that the mentor or mentors, if there are more than one, understand their roles and can participate in that fashion. That's how I understand it.
Okay, and a lot more is in the book. You'll find there's a detailed, quite a few pages on the role of the mentor, the role of the coach, and there's even a table there that splits the two, which one. But the coach is dealing with the more specific skill.
Can I just say one thing? It always depends on the context of the situation. Let's take that gentleman's area. He's not going to have a coach and a mentor and a chief mentor. The person's going to have to play a multi-skilled role. So it depends on the circumstances. But ideally, the big organization, we have various sets of skills and enough resources, perhaps, then there's a clear differentiation in those roles.
Okay, so the fellow you want
I actually wanted to find out is it wrong for one person to play both the roles? Because for me, Richard is my coach and my mentor. Because I report to him, like we do over the same thing. And then we also have a side where we're talking about my career path. Every once a year, we'll sit down and ask me, what are your goals? Because 2010, we were like, you have to get your master's, and then all out. And then now it was like, now you must get your PhD, you must do technology leadership program. So we do have that kind, we must register with Excel. That is the mentor side that he's playing. And then there's also a coaching side whereby he would teach me the skills that I need to do my job better. So for me, he plays both the roles.
That's why I indicated that the flexibility depending on the organization, depending on the individual. In some instances, a coach just isn't capable of more than transferring the particular skill that they have on the job. But again, it depends on the circumstance, the situation.
So you mentioned Eskom's knowledge management system. To what extent is administration and record keeping of the making process and outcomes a challenge, and how do you overcome that? Use an unstructured method, how you up to the partnership to decide on how to do that, or do you kind of play a hovering role, checking that stuff is happening, it's outcomes?
You see, in some areas it's working well, where we've got a good mentorship committee that's strong, and we've got a strong chief mentor that's managing that process. And there's regular records, there's minutes of the meetings and things. And but in some areas of Eskom, I must admit, it's a large organization, it's not so well developed. But what we've done is we've taken the best practice throughout the organization, and we almost kind of published it in that book. So we go around actually helping the departments that do not have it well developed, and we even ask the departments that's doing it well, we ask them to help those other departments that do it well. So kind of they are also kind of mentoring and coaching the other departments in a way at a broader level. But it's common to have a mentor even mentor the individual, and then if the individual is looking at specific skill in a certain area, the mentor can also coach in that specific area. So, and then you use different hats. And I think that is quite common, because if you're an engineer, you will be mentored normally by an engineer. That's the best practice, because another individual won't know what those aspirations are. We're running out of time, so I think we need to move through these questions. And I think we can have more questions. Yes.
Just on that last point that
yes.
The first speaker,
yes.
Yeah. Specifically referred to the outside of the
yes.
outside of the country.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment.
Yes. You see, in our environment, like I'm an electrical engineer, we advise people within our organization to get a mentor within that area, because that mentor will be able to guide them for professional registration. Otherwise, you'll have a problem where the mentor will drive you in the wrong direction. So that's the ideal case. We also sometimes encourage the individuals to get a mentor from within the organization, because they understand the dynamics and the culture of the company, and they are able to then work with that. If you have a person from outside, but it's a debatable thing depending where. But also depending on this model here, depending where you are, it may vary.
Yes, this is
up to this point where you get your professional registration, you have to have a professional engineer if you want to be registered. Otherwise, the engineering council will not even consider you. Thereafter, you can look at other.
Yes, I was going to come to the point that this lady mentioned that she's letting the committee register and exactly. So my question was, is there any process in place to assist that process of broader mentorship as you advance up in your career within a model? Is there no such, and it's because it seems as I get from what I've done.
I just want to comment on that. I think at that level, that's the time that you can really decide whether you want a person to eventually because I find there's nothing wrong in having mentors outside your organization, and besides, I have a mentor, but it's outside Eskom, and it's working very well. So it's that time of the day in your career where you can start looking around within the organization or outside the organization.
And also, it's normally in that period where you need to decide whether you want to go purely technical. So therefore, your choice of mentor then becomes technical in nature and maybe mentor you in that direction, whether internal or outside. Or you want to go managerial, which then in each case you would then choose an executive or somebody who models the area where you think you want to go. So those are some of the choices.
Just on the last point of the same thing, the key is understanding your own desires and needs. What is it that gets you getting up in the morning? Now, I know I've said it before, but the greatest thing you need to realize is that you're greater than what you are today. You have to understand that within yourself, there are targets that you need to go, not need to, but can go to. And to sit back and say, I'm comfortable now, to me is unacceptable. If you're not planning for the future, what are you doing? And just one point is, if you don't understand compound interest, go and understand it, because that is what your pension comes from. So you need to work on building your money to get your decent pension when you come out. If you don't understand compound interest, go and find out about it, because that's how you grow your future.
Okay, I think let's move on to the next one. I think it was a very good discussion, and we got a lot of these things captured there in the video, so I think we'll have good material there. What are the best ways to assess, analyze, and develop the talent? Now, we've looked and we talked about the problem of talent. How do we actually assess it? How do we analyze that, and how do we develop that further? It's perhaps a few questions in one there, but maybe, I don't know whether if the panel members want, we still got another 20 minutes because they still, the next session is starting 25 past. Yeah, but they gave us
So who's not stealing our tea?
we still have about 5-10 minutes. Okay, so what are the best ways to assess, analyze, and develop that talent? So I think let's open this as a point of discussion there. Anybody wants to go? A thought, a question around that. We spoke about some of the assessment techniques like the MBTI, there's the Colby's, there's the EQ, emotional intelligence. There's a whole vast of psychological tools, if I can call it that, to look at some of the talent, and to also analyze that. But maybe the question is more about, once we've done that, how do we develop that talent further? What is the way of action? And maybe that's linked to this as well. How do you nurture that talent? How do you nurture and develop that talent? So thoughts on that? Richard, you wanna? I can see you are.
I think the one aspect that I came across many years ago was asking people 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than me when I was a youngster, what would they do if they were my age? And it's amazing when you ask people that question. Two things happen. One, they express to you the mistakes they've made, and they give you a guideline on what you can aim for in the future. The understanding yourself and what you can do, and not being afraid to take a chance. You know, I don't mean that in an extremely silly way, but I mean it's saying, I've done this job for 5 years. What is happening down the passageway? You know, networking was spoken about earlier on. To me, it's exploring other alternatives, finding things that are what other people do. So to understand, to nurture talent, you want to find out where your interests are. Go and speak to people that do different jobs and explore what they're doing. Suddenly, but hang on, I really want to do this. So in terms of nurturing talent, as management, we need to sit down and say, okay, have you been doing the same job for this period of time? Can we not grow you in this area? It's as much management's job to grow you as it is your own job, own exercise to grow yourself.
Okay, thanks for those thoughts. I think Richard answered the question. But I think one thing is actually, there was a study done where they interviewed people that retired. And they interviewed people and they asked them, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do? And guess what was the 3 things that they said that we would do? Okay, I think Richard knows this one. So take more risk, came up as number 1. The second one was leave a legacy behind. So we want to leave something behind for our kids and the future generations. And guess what the third one was? Have more fun. Have fun. Don't take yourself so seriously. So those were the 3. So I think maybe advice more in terms of that. Let's move on then to the next one, looking at how do you identify and allocate talent in the correct job areas within the company. So you've got these tools and you looked at the talent, you know more or less what this talent, you had your talent board meetings and you've got the talent board process working and you've got all of that now properly figured out within your company. How do you then allocate the correct jobs within the company in terms of the best fit to actually meet the talent? So, how are you doing it? Is there any thoughts on it? Anybody from the panel wants to? I see Richard is.
No, I sent a set of slides around a couple of days ago by Rob Stevens, and we're looking at the future growth of Eskom in the next 30 years. And the thing that strikes me significantly is that there's very little dreaming taking place. Now, if you think about building, at least generating electricity, we do it with coal or maybe solar, maybe a bit of wind. But aren't there other things that we should be looking at? Can't we grow the talent to come up with new ideas? How can we grow the innovation in an organization? Now, to me, this is the thing that we don't understand how much potential we've got. To me, the encouraging people, putting prize on the table to come up with the best way to create electricity from a different viewpoint. Why aren't we seeing these competitions? Why don't we get people saying, look, shake up the bottle and let's see what comes out of it. To sit back and do day after day work, trying to work, that just pisses me off, man. We are bright people. Why aren't we talking about it? I could go on and on.
Thanks. Richard gets quite excited about this subject. Yes?
It's extremely frustrating with the environment, with the economy, with the environment, because you would like to give people an opportunity in different things. But because of downsizing, and you've got so many people to do a specific role, a little bit restricted in giving leeway. And so it's extremely frustrating because there's a lot of potential in developing talent if you had a little bit more scope.
Sometimes you have to do it in the form of projects and secondments and training opportunities, things like think the formal side is a little bit more tricky now.
I think you're 100% right, and if you look at all the companies and all over the country and even the world, this thing about downsizing, you don't have the same capacity that you had all the time. And I think all of these things become a sort of a luxury thing that ends up being put on the side burner. But you need also that strong commitment from the leadership, I think, ultimately. And I think if leadership is strong, we're going to get to win. Okay, I think that, yes, one more. Yes.
The other thing that really matters, and it was mentioned in terms of networking, one of the areas that most people, management doesn't realize is that there's 10 o'clock morning tea time, where you say to the organization, I don't want you having tea at your office, I want you to come down to the common areas for 15 minutes, I'd say from 10:15 to 10:30. You will come down there for tea. Because what happens in those conversation area times is not only do you discover what your neighbors do, but you start talking about things and problems that you had suddenly start to flow. The benefit of actual communication in a small area over tea time, but it has to be something that management insists upon. You may not stay away from tea time. Even though you don't want to, you can stay against the wall. But
I can see where it is ending with this one. Okay, I think let's just finish this last one. And we got a senior general manager in Eskom called Elsie Kule. And when I first joined the Academy of Learning, she says, no, you must have tea with your customers. You must have tea with your customers. So every time I went to Elsie, I said, Elsie, what's this thing about tea? And she says, no, go and visit your customers, go and talk to people over a cup of tea. You'll be amazing what you can get out of that. And I actually encourage all the universities around the country, guys, let's go have tea with Pretoria University and talk about tea. And that's where innovation and ideas come from. Okay, I think let's just talk around the last, and we still have time for tea. Are people in South Africa being rewarded appropriately in terms of what they contribute across professions? We spoke earlier on about even the contribution of just thanking the individual and non-monetary award, but is the rewards actually being done well in South Africa? Yes.
The answer is probably no. Yes. If you go back to that first slide that you had on where the one around impacting on this one. I mean, the whole skills development framework is largely geared around the learning event.
Yes.
If you're sitting with a mentor and you're spending 2 hours of quality time with that person, there's no skills report that's going to be able to acknowledge that as a learning event. And that's just sad, because it's focused on performance. That's my understanding. So the answer to it is probably no.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I mean, there's one takeaway. Yes.
Yes, well, I just wanted to find out, like, after all the mentoring and nurturing and everything else, how then do you retain that specific talent, that person, if someone else decides to play?
Yeah, okay, I don't know whether anybody wants to, on the panel, try to address that.
We do that for the next conference.
The retention we found is that
it must be a broad-based approach. It's not money only, it's a whole host of things that you need to look at.
It's a combination, and then what we found, some of the research has shown is also when we develop our people further, when people are being developed, they do not leave the organization. And around the world, so people feel that they are being developed because a good mentorship and coaching program, if there's good development, for example, they're studying towards a PhD or they're studying towards betterment of their personal beliefs and things, they will stay with that company. They will not leave. So, but I agree with Patrick. It's a combination of lots of areas. But to be honest with you, I don't think even within South Africa we actually know how to actually do this. And there are good examples like Google and those kind of companies that create this nice environment around where you work. I don't think our companies are there yet. Any other comments on that? Okay, I think then that could, yes, one last comment. I think that point is taken. The mobility is here. I know one incident in the Eskom organization that we had where one young engineer wanted to leave. And he approached the manager and said, I want to leave, and he has better opportunity in the software industry. So then this manager sat down with the individual and then, kind of talked to the individual about careers and whatever. And the individual stayed for another year. And after that other year, he had the same discussion. Went back to the manager and said, no, now I want to leave. And the guy stayed in Eskom for 7 years after that. Then I asked the manager, like, how did you manage to keep this guy? He says, no, every time this guy was getting a bit anxious to leave, I'd excite him and tell him about some new projects Eskom is building and things. I had the same incident. I was working with Accenture on a project in Eskom. And this lady also in Accenture said, I wanted to leave. I went to my manager. And then the manager sent me to the Accenture University in the USA. And after you go to the Accenture University, similar to the Mittal University, they brainwash you and they tell you how good Accenture is. She said, when I came out of there, I stayed for another 4 years. So sometimes you have to just excite the guy for 2 years and carry on. I think let's get some tea. Thanks, guys.